Hey there fellow cake friends, and welcome to this week's tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make these toffee and dusty rose Gumpaste carnations. I know carnations can get a bad rap, but I really love them in the right arrangement. Comment below and tell me if you do too. So before we get to the tutorial, if you haven't yet, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It helps out a lot, and give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go, and let's get to the tutorial. I'm using 3 gel paste colors to achieve a gradient effect from toffee to dusty rose: gooseberry, dusky pink, and caramel. Here are the 3 colors of gum paste that I'm making. The rightmost gum paste is majority dusky pink with a touch of caramel. The middle is about equal parts of caramel and dusky pink. And the leftmost is majority caramel with just a touch of both dusky pink and gooseberry. You can, of course, make these carnations in any color that you'd like. To build the carnations, you'll need 20 gauge wires, which we will build the bud on. I will start by cutting them into thirds, and then I will hook the wire and close the hooks. You'll need 1 wire per flower. You'll need 3 sizes of 5 petal cutters, which I will drop a link for in the description box below. I will also be using a metal ball tool and my favorite gem frilling and veining tool. If you've watched my videos, I basically use this tool on every flower, so make sure to get one. I will also link to that one in the description box below. I have just a plain white batch of my gum paste recipe, which I'll use to make the centers. It's straight from the fridge, so I'm kneading it until it's smooth and warmed up a bit. You'll want to make your centers just smaller than 1 petal on the smallest 5 petal cutter that you have. I'll take about a blueberry-sized piece of gum paste and I will roll that into a nice tight ball, and then I will continue rolling that into a cone. I'll measure that onto my cutter to make sure it's about the right size before I attach it to the wire. I'm just using a touch of gum glue and dipping the hooked end of the wire into the gum glue, and then I will insert that into the fat end of the cone. Close up the base and make sure this is really firmly attached, because this will be the anchor point for your entire flower, and then you can smooth out the sides a bit before allowing these to dry for 24 hours. These don't have to be perfect. The flowers do have a lot of ruffly petals, so don't worry about making them all exactly the same. Just make sure they're generally the right size and you'll be good to go. Next, we'll be rolling out our colored gum pastes. I'm starting with the pinkmost color, and I'm going to be rolling it out to a number 5 on my pasta machine. And if you're new to gum paste flowers and you'd like to see how I roll it with the pasta machine, just check the top right corner of this video. I'm going to put a link to my ranunculus video where I take you through rolling your gum paste through a pasta machine. So once my gum paste is to a number 5 on the pasta machine, I will begin cutting out my blossoms. I will cut out 2 blossoms for each flower that you're going to make, and don't forget to cut out an extra or 2 just in case you mess one up. Make sure to give it a good wiggle on a soft mat or rub your hand on the edge to make sure that the cut is sharp. I'm cutting all my flowers on a silicone mat, which is awesome for getting clean cuts. Next, I will roll my middle color out to a number 5 and use the medium-sized cutter. I'm also cutting out 2 blossoms for each flower I'm making in this color. Lastly, for my largest cutter, I will roll out my caramel also to a number 5 and cut out 1 to 2 blossoms for each flower. I made some smaller carnations with just 1, but if you want a really fluffy one like I'm making here, you can use 2. Next, we'll thin the petals. Start with your smallest blossoms and work one at a time if you're new to gum paste so it doesn't dry out too quickly on you. I'm thinning out the petals and stretching them a bit using my large ball tool. Repeat with each petal. This is a very similar technique I use for my gum paste spray roses, and the same cutters too. So if you're wondering how else you can use these tools, I will put a link for that at the top right corner of this video so you can check it out. Next, you'll put a blossom right at the corner of your mat and adding more pressure on the outside of the petals, roll your veining tool firmly across it. Again, you will repeat with the rest of the petals. Try not to add too much pressure to the center of the blossom. You want that to keep its integrity. You just want to really thin out those very, very edges of your petals. Grab your Dresden tool and add a little extra texture on any of the petals that look too smooth. Keep in mind that carnations have almost jagged kind of petals, so you want lots of texture here. Lastly, you will use a large ball tool and slightly cup the petals inwards by adding pressure just inside the edge of the petal and pulling it inwards, letting up the pressure by the time you get to the center. I'm doing 2 cupping motions on each petal. Brush gum glue into the center of one blossom, then stack the other on top with the petals staggered. Press firmly and then brush your gum glue in the center of the top blossom, as well as a thin layer covering one petal completely. Thread your stacked blossoms onto the wire of your flower center. Start with the petal you added gum glue to and just wrap that around your center, making sure that it is fully covered. Next, you'll pinch your petals together a bit as you stick them onto the sides. Sorry, this was a really bad shot, but you'll be able to see it better when I do the next layer of petals. It'll be exactly the same. Make sure the base is really secure and fairly smooth, then you can hang this upside down to dry while you work on the next petals. Repeat the same stretching and thinning with your ball tool, veining with your veiner, texturing with your Dresden tool, then cupping with your large ball tool. Comment below and tell me what you think of carnations. Are you a lover or a hater of them, or does it totally depend on the color and the composition of the arrangement? I have to admit I was not a fan. They really bring me back to medieval times as a child, but these toffee carnations got me and I had to make them. Again, you will add gum glue to the center of one of your blossoms and then stack the other one on top with the petals staggered. Give it a really nice firm press and then add gum glue to the top layer. Thread this onto your par-dried flower, and then you'll be able to see better here. You're going to be pinching the petals at the base as you stick them onto the flower so that they fold on top of one another and create lots of interesting ruffles and texture. Make sure you're pressing firmly at the base as you do this so that the petals stick well. And I'm going to be using my veining tool to press some of these folds into the folds of the previous layer, just helping the colors blend a bit more seamlessly and making the flower look more cohesive. Flip this over and allow to par dry until the petals are slightly movable, but don't fall down when they've been turned upright. Okay, we are on to our last set of petals. We are repeating this whole process again with the final caramel blossoms. So you'll do the same thing, thinning and stretching the petals slightly, texturing them, using your Dresden tool, and then cupping them. Since these petals are a lot wider, some of them I'm cupping inwards in 3 different spots instead of 2. Brush your gum glue into the center of the blossoms and then a little bit up the sides of the petals, just a touch so that they can stick well, because these petals are a lot longer than the ones that we were just using. So you'll stack them staggered and then add a little more gum glue to the top layer. Then you'll be ready to thread these on to your par-dried flower. So I'm going to open up the petals just a little bit here. These are my par-dried petals, and if your gum paste does not do that, you can give my recipe a try in the description box below, because it does give you a lot of flexibility when you're working with your gum paste. So go ahead and thread those on, and then pinch your petals together as you firmly press at the base. If you are having a tough time keeping the petals up, you can flip your flower over so you're holding it upside down and looking up at it, and that should make it a lot easier. I'm just smoothing out the base a little bit here and really pinching it to make sure it's firmly attached. If some of your petals are too flat looking, feel free to twist and fold them until you're happy with the way that they look. Let this par dry until the petals are as malleable as the previous layer was before you added the last layer. Then you can flip the flower upright and allow it to dry on top of some bumpy foam or a flower former. If any of your petals are falling too much, just wedge some paper towels in between the layers to prop them up. Letting the petals dry like this really lets the outer petals open up just like a real blossom would, and the inner petals, since they are par dried, they're going to stay more tightly together. Allow these flowers to dry for at least 24 hours, and once they're dry, you are ready to dust. I always like to play around with different colors to add layers to my flower, so I will do that here and explain my process. The center, I want to focus the raspberry color to bring out the Gumpaste color that we use there. I'll also add a touch of caramel throughout. The mid and outer layers, I want to add more caramel. And throughout, I'm also going to add hints of crimson. Then I'll finish with some touches of moss green to add freshness to the flower. Pull a bit of cornstarch aside and dilute your raspberry dust. Diluting it with cornstarch really helps prevent any streakiness, but I'm not going to do it too much here because I want a fairly saturated color. Next, I will take a little bit of the caramel and dilute it slightly with cornstarch. I'm leaving a little bit of a space between these two colors, and lastly I'm going to be adding the crimson between the two and kind of blending them all together so that I can mix and match the colors as I add them onto the flower. Lastly, I'm taking the crimson and putting it right between the two colors. And then I will dilute that a little bit with both of the colors above and below it, the raspberry and the caramel, because I want to have kind of a gradient between all these three colors. I'm using a small flat brush that's soft for the majority of this flower because it is really delicate. Take some of the crimson and raspberry and begin to dust it onto the edges of your flower center. Be very gentle and just kind of catch the edges with the color. And then after, if you can fit your brush into any of the crevices, go ahead and do that. It will add a lot of depth to your flower. Work your way outward with the dust. If your brush fits into any of those crevices, make sure you add some color in there too. I'm going to be slowly moving to my caramel color as you get towards the outer petals of the flower. Catch both the insides and outsides of the outer petals with dust to give your flower lots of depth and to make it look more realistic. Don't be afraid of layering the colors and blending the raspberry and the crimson colors with the caramel and vice versa. What I'm going for is a seamless transition between the three colors of Gumpaste that we used in this flower. Take a little bit of moss green and dilute it with cornstarch. You're just going to catch some edges here and there with this green, which will really bring your flower to life. But don't go too crazy with it. You don't want a green flower, just add some little hints here and there. And there you have it, your completed carnation. You can add a simple dark green calyx to the base if you'd like, and tape up the stem in dark green floral tape. I just left these like this as they were going into a fake cake and the base was covered by other flowers, so you wouldn't be able to see the calyx anyway. If you made it this far in the video, thank you, and comment below and tell me what flowers you want to see next. I will add them to my list and then you should see them soon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And before you head out, please don't forget to head down to the description box below where you can find the entire tool and ingredient list I use to make these carnations and the colors, because I often get asked where I get my gel colors and my dust colors as well. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.